What's up guys, the next 10 minutes are gonna be a complete game changer for you. I'll be sharing with you 100 most important chess tips. And since I wanna do that within 10 minutes, I'll be going fast. If you don't understand something, just pause the video, think about the position and then go next. Let's rock. Do not move the same piece twice in an opening. Do not exchange your active pieces for no reason. Cut your opponent's king off so that it cannot castle anymore. Castle as soon as possible to put your king to safety. The main opening task is to develop your pieces quickly. Keep your queen behind your pawn so that your opponent cannot attack it. Look for the best diagonals for your bishops. Only cowards defend their pieces. Always tell this to your opponents. A bishop is slightly stronger than a knight. Do not trade it off for no reason. When your opponent's king hasn't castled yet, aim to open the position quickly. While developing, make sure you don't block your other pieces. A knight on the rim is dim. Avoid unnecessary pawn moves in an opening, develop your pieces instead. Actually, I think I'm ahead of schedule. When there are opposite side castlings, start a pawn storm. When you don't know an opening theory, just develop your pieces and castle. Use your pawns to blockade opponent's bishop. Pin the knight near your opponent's castling as the first step to your further attack. When you have more space, avoid exchanges. Make the fish and pole trap more effective, stare in the eyes of your opponent and tell him the dark night rises. When you're attacking, avoid exchange of queens. Put your rooks on open files. Capture towards the center. Move up your queen to make your attack successful. Transfer your knight to a weak square. When you're up material, trade pieces. Do not exchange a pinned knight, it can't move anyway. Do not advance your pawns too far away from the rest of your forces. When you're in trouble, tell your opponent it's inappropriate to think about mating. Provide an escape square for your king to avoid back rank problems later. Figure out opponent's plans and prevent them. Trade your flank pawn for opponent's central pawn because the center is the most important part of the board. Centralize your pieces as much as you can. When you control the center, it's fine to start your attack on the side. Pawns can't go back. Avoid creating weaknesses in your position. Sacrifice to expose opponent's king and to destroy him after that. Your knight is the best blockader of opponent's passed pawn. Trade off your passive pieces. Double your rooks on an open file. If your opponent is playing too well, tell him great chess skills is a sign of a wasted life. Sacrifice a pawn to open diagonals for your bishops. Place your queen 2 squares away from the knight diagonally so that the knight can no longer attack it. Do not overload your piece with too many functions. When your knight is pinned, attack the bishop to force it to make a decision whether it's gonna trade or go back. If you have a bad bishop, trade it off. Keep your pieces protected and you'll never blunder them. Put your pieces on squares opposite to the color of your opponent's bishop. Get rid of the pin by pushing your pawns forward. Ask yourself, what will my opponent do when it's his turn, and prevent it. Make your opponent underestimate you. Tell him, I've learned all the strategies of Magnus Carlsen. Relocate your pieces to more active positions. When you're down material, complicate matters and attack. Counter a flank attack by your central attack. Trade off opponent's fianchettoed bishop. You can use a pawn effectively to restrict opponent's knight. Use a pawn minority attack to create weak pawns in your opponent's position. Occupy strong squares defended by your pawns. Eliminate the main defender of your opponent's king to make your attack easily successful. To limit the options of your opponent, play forced moves, checks, captures, attacking moves. Scare your opponent. Tell him that you're Bobby Kimovich Carlsen. Your knight is the best defender of your king. Doubled pawns in the center aren't bad because they control a lot of important squares. A double attack is the most important chess tactics. When your opponent is attacking you, ask yourself if it's truly dangerous. For example, in this position, white can just ignore the threat and play knight to c3. And black actually tries to execute his threat, then after bishop b5, black will actually lose their queen. Offense is the best defense. Advance your rook to the 7th rank, it has a lot of targets to attack there. Attack the base of your opponent's pawn chain. Monitor hanging undefended pieces of your opponent and attack them. Linear pieces, meaning everything but not the knight, are most active in open positions. Define your candidate moves before you start to calculate anything. f7 square is the weakest point of your opponent's position. Avoid pawn islands, they are weak. Activate your king in an endgame. When your opponent's king is weak, look for combinations. For example, in this case, queen h7 is a beautiful finish to this cool game. Call your blunders sacrifices, it feels better. To take is a mistake. Do not trade when it helps your opponent to become more active. Positional play simply implies putting your pieces to better positions. Attack the pinned knight to win the game. While defending, keep the position closed so that your opponent cannot attack you anymore. Perpetual check is a good way to save a losing game. Bring all your pieces into play. If you mastered all the good moves by now, you'll be a disco superstar. A pawn break can help you create a passed pawn in an endgame. For example, in this position, this pawn break creates an unstoppable pawn on the a-file. A stalemate is a good way to save a losing endgame. Put your rook behind a passed pawn to support its advancement. A bishop can completely dominate a knight. Use the back rank weakness. For example, in this position after a queen to b7, black is lost because in this case they are checkmating. Use opposition in an endgame to push opponent's king away so that you can advance and win the game. In an endgame, centralize your queen. Passed pawns must move forward. Queen plus knight is a great attacking team. Rook plus bishop is a great attacking team. The main endgame plan is to promote a passed pawn. For instance, in this position, rook takes g6 wins the game on the spot because the pawn is unstoppable. In an endgame, attack opponent's pawns, not his king. When your bishop cannot control the square of promotion, a rook pawn cannot win the game. Advance your pawn majority, play where you are stronger. Attack two weaknesses to overload your opponent. Restricted pieces is a great target for your attack. Two minor pieces are usually stronger than a rook plus pawn. Calculate all possible captures, not just one. For example, in this position, most people take it here with the bishop, while in fact, the other capture knight takes f6 wins the game because on the next move you can pick up this pawn and create a deadly attack. If you made it thus far, you are destined to be a good chess player. If you want to go deeper in one of these tips or strategic chess in general, check out this free masterclass over there. Take care.